Good afternoon. I would like to call this meeting of the June 18th City of Las Vegas Arts Commission to order. Items listed on this agenda may be taken out of order, presented. Two or more agenda items for consideration may be combined, and any item on the agenda may be removed or related discussion may be delayed at any time. Backup material for this agenda may be obtained from Luann D. Holmes, acting city clerk. I would like to have a call. I would like to have are we in compliance of the open meeting law?
Yes, we are.
Thank you. I would like to have the roll call for membership, please.
Sure. Chair Grogan.
Here.
Vice Chair Nowak is excused. Commissioner Michaels is excused. Commissioner Abelman.
Member Abelman here.
Commissioner Tupaz is excused. Commissioner Trimble.
Here.
Commissioner Alvarez.
Here.
Commissioner Sheflett.
Here.
Commissioner Schneider is excused. Commissioner Carpel. Commissioner Diener.
Here.
And Commissioner Weinstein.
Can I say that Commissioner Tupaz is coming in?
Oh, he is?
Right there.
Okay, we will mark Commissioner Tupaz as present. We do have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, we are in compliance with the open meeting law. I asked that earlier, but just double checking.
Yes, we are.
Okay. I'd like at this time, first of all, to welcome everybody to come to our annual meeting of the Arts Commission. Today we'll be having presentation on public art and its significance. We'll have a presentation on that. We will also go over the budget for the next fiscal year and have discussion on that. Let me read the following from our agenda. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. If you wish to be heard, give your name for the record. The amount of discussion as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed may be limited. We have discussion comment cards at the front. They're the orange ones over there. If you're interested in speaking, we're going to defer all the speaking to the discussion when we go into the physical budget and the policies near the end of the meeting. We may have time limits, but on the other hand, we're going to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to speak and be heard today. At this time, what I'd like to do is I would like to go in for public action, number 4 on the agenda, which is public action to approve the final minutes by reference of the Main Street Ad Hoc Subcommittee meeting of May 21st and the regular Arts Commission meeting of May 21st. Does Committee Chairman Abelman have any comments on these meetings or any thoughts on the meetings of the Subcommittee of Main Street?
Member Abelman, no, I didn't have any comments to add.
Any comments from any other members of the Commission on the Main Street Subcommittee meetings of that date? At the same time, regular Arts Commission meeting of May 21st. Hope you had a chance to read them. Does anybody have any comments on those meetings of May 21st? Hearing none, I will hear for a motion to approve both the minutes of the subcommittee meeting of May 21st and the regular Arts Commission meeting of May 21st also. Do I hear a motion?
I so move.
It has been moved. Do I hear a second? Although we don't second, thank you. Also, I want to point out just at the beginning on this thing, when you speak, just identify yourselves for the city clerk so they can take records since we stretch on down the way. Commissioner Diener made that motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. This is on 2 different meeting amendments or meeting times. So all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Pushing my little button here, learning how to do it. I'd like to move on to item number 5, which is a report by the Arts Commission Chair regarding the monthly summary of current initiatives, cultural events, and opportunities. I'd like to point out that we have several, one of them which we will be hearing on today, but we are going to be having a presentation on Saturday beginning at, I believe it's at 10 o'clock and going to noon, and this is in the City Council. Where is this located? In the City Hall?
Chair Groman, it's going to be in City Hall, first floor training areas, and we'll have signage.
Okay, thank you very much. Also, I'd like to point out on other things we have, and this is Mary Lucking will be speaking on Saturday, June 20th, and she'll also be speaking today. We also have some comments on visual arts. Desert Companion has Focus on Nevada Photo Contest Showcase is at the Fifth Street School in the Mayor's Gallery. Also at Charleston Heights Ballroom, the Inside Ballroom, which is celebrating Life 2015, which is the jury selection. That's from Friday, May 22nd to July 11th. Also, we have the Grand Gallery, which you've passed by down in the lobby today, that is continuing to show through July 13th. Please take a look at that as you go in and out. We also have a presentation also at Charleston Heights, Domestic Criteria and Dominic Criteria and Christopher Troutman, Charleston Heights, that's June 26th to September 19th. Also, the Celebrating Life, the 2015 Winter Circle is Thursday, July 23rd through Saturday, September 12th. That will be in the City Hall Chambers Gallery. And those are the winners from the Winter Circle. Also, and I mentioned this last month's meeting, we have the coupled artwork created by married couples. That's Thursday, May 21st to July 16th, 2015. That's also in Chambers Gallery at City Hall. Does any other commissioner have any other events they'd like to bring to our attention at this time?
Chair, Commissioner Shefzik, would like to invite you all to the reception for an exhibition at the Barrick Museum tomorrow evening. New acquisitions and the Vogel collection will be up. So please stop by. The new acquisitions features a number of Las Vegas artists and the beginning of a collection of Southern Nevada artists. So feel free to drop by. Thank you.
Yes, anybody else?
Yeah, Member Abelman. I don't know how many people have heard of First Friday kind of taking a little time to change and organize. First Friday is kind of restructuring. I'm not sure how to use the word First Friday. So in July and August, it'll be called Summer Art Walk on First Friday. And it'll be one ST first, so it's not going to be confused with First Friday. And I'll bring it up later because I think this is really relevant to us as a community. First Friday of the month is very important to 18B, and so I want to kind of talk about that later. But if you don't know, still support it. Please come down for First Friday of the month.
Thank you. Any other commissioner? Any new magazines being published that anybody like to draw reference to? You have to push a little button there if you want to do that.
Well, thank you for addressing that, Chairman. A new magazine that will be launched this July, it's called Le Vague, which is actually a slang for Las Vegas. It is going to focus on art and culture and fashion of the locals, not tourists, not people coming in Las Vegas, but people within Las Vegas and Nevada as a whole. So I actually mentioned it to Chairman during the last meeting that for the following issue, he's going to be interviewed and the Arts Commission is going to be featured in the magazine. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any other commissioners have any other mention of cultural activities happening within the city during the next month? Thank you very much. I would like to move on to the next agenda item, which is number 6, our report from staff. Diane, do you have a report for us?
Very briefly, Chair Groman, just want to mention that the Main Street signature artwork, Call to Artists, is on the street, and we're already getting a lot of interest. Also, just wanted to let everyone know that we have a new online process. So everything will be done online, including submitting images. In the past, we've received images on disk and on flash drives and written materials, and in this case, everything will be done online. So we're glad to have it out.
Is that all you have?
Everything else will be further on down the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. Speaking that, moving on to item number 7, which is, I think you just mentioned it, but the Main Street Signature Sculpture Project, seems like we're moving on that. Does the chairman of that subcommittee have any comments on that?
Member Abelman, no, I'm just excited that we have it out there in plenty of time to make sure that we review it and that the process is really thorough for this project. So I'm excited that it's out there already. Please share, actually.
Yeah, I would also second that. Please share on social media the fact that this is now out for participation by public artists, and we're looking to locals to submit their ideas and their project for these things. So we want to start the process and get this going and get the most artists participating of any projects we've had in the past. This will be a good example of us reaching out to the community to look for local artists to participate in this project. And it's also a main visible project in the city. So thanks to everybody for getting this going and fast-tracking it, to the Main Street Signature Subcommittee for their work on this item. Okay, now moving on to number 8, discussion for possible action regarding project updates by the PR and Marketing Subcommittee. Commissioner Alvarez, do you have anything on the PR Subcommittee to report at this time?
Thank you, Chair Grogan. Just a few things. First of all, I'd like to thank Diane for sending out the email regarding the Las Vegas City Scene section that we had on the city TV station. Chair Grogan was interviewed with Zach Ostrovsky, a local artist. It was a really nice segment. I haven't gotten a chance to talk to Diana Paul over in PR, but I was wondering if there's a way to maybe get just that segment of Las Vegas City Scene so that we can push that out through social media instead of having to show the entire program. That would be great because it'd make it a lot easier to be able to tweet it out, and it shows the relevant interview. And Commissioner Grogan, you've done such a good job on television. I think you have a new job, so. Also, just wanted to just discuss really quickly our website. I noticed that our website has changed quite a bit, and I know we're now we have now control of the website. It needs some work, and one of the challenging things that I've both in looking at the Arts Commission website and looking at the Office of Cultural Affairs website, I'd like to kind of get a little history as to why there's two separate websites and why not combine them to make them more efficient. Because when we look at other cities in the American Southwest, in particular San Diego, Los Angeles, Reno, Phoenix, and Salt Lake City, I've noticed that our website is just really very poorly designed. I mean, we are really behind the 8 ball as far as accessibility, user-friendly interface. I mean, it's just not an easy website to work with. Is there a way that we can in some way combine the two, really make it more effective? Is there a plan for our website moving forward?
This is Nancy Diener. You mean combining Arts Las Vegas with the Arts Commission website? Yeah, there is no plans to do that. I actually would rather not do that, and so there's no plan to move that forward. And the current Arts Commission public art website that we have, we just underwent with our IT department this big push to get it on board before we had to pay Exhibit E from back east to keep hosting it for us. And we actually thought everybody did a really good job, and we're kind of getting some kudos on that website now. So the idea to merge them would not be anything that I would want to do, so I would not be in favor of that. But furthermore, there's a big push now in the city. The city is going to have their own city's website all redesigned. All of these websites may be folded back into the city's big website. That's all still out there. Probably this is an initiative that the city's starting in this upcoming fiscal year, which starts July 1. So I'm not even positive if we're going to be keeping our own two separate websites that you talked about.
Right, I mean, I understand that, but we are way behind cities that are either smaller than us or larger than us. I mean, pretty much across the board, all the websites are incredibly user-friendly, and our website is just not. Neither one of them are. Also, another challenge that we have is, and this is something that probably should be addressed by city staff, is why can't we get the Arts Commission agendas? It's incredibly difficult to find. I go to the city's website, I look up agendas, and then I get, a Google filter of all these agendas from the past. It's really challenging to find our own website, our own agenda. It'd be nice if there was a link directly from the City Arts Commission website to get the agenda. Or at the very least, publish the agenda itself every month that we have an Arts Commission on its own splash page from our site.
I don't know why we couldn't publish the agenda. Do you, Diane? We could put it on our own website.
I would think we could easily
Yeah.
create a link for agendas and also for minutes. So, yeah, I don't think that would be an issue.
Okay, thank you.
I think, Commissioner Alvarez, in future PR and marketing meetings, we've had good rapport with the city's PR department. If you want to talk to them and have a session where they come in and talk about website design, even though, as Commissioner Diener points out, it might be modified down the road, I'm sure they'd be more than welcome to come in and listen to ideas or thoughts. I have no problem with trying to seek streamline for any of our websites. So we can work on that in your next PR meeting.
Member Abelman, why do we have two websites, though? Why is there a Cultural Affairs and a Art Commission website?
There's, actually, years ago, there was just the city's website, and we were buried under Parks and Recreation. So we fought very hard to get out from under Parks and Recreation, and if you look really hard, you might find a cultural offering. We wound up getting permission to take it off the city's server, or off whatever the terminology is, to create our own, meaning our division's website, where we sell tickets and to theater performances, et cetera.
Yours being Cultural Affairs, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. And it's called Arts Las Vegas. And so we got that name and we developed that website. And it wasn't until many years after that, that the Arts Commission's website came along. And we felt that it was strong being its own website apart from that and not being buried into the other website. Not that the parts of it, both of them couldn't be merged with each other. But I would not, at this point, I take under advisement what Commissioner Alvarez said, but I would have to really think hard and long about the advantages of the Office of Cultural Affairs and the Arts Commission's website merging into one. And I will.
Thank you. Well, we'll take a look at it through the PR subcommittee on improving our own website. Another thought we might do is, certainly since it's kind of the Arts Commission thing, whether or not we can do linkage to outside art areas or art projects, so we can make at least the Art Commission thing maybe more vitality oriented to the community. So that may be something we just visit on when we're in a subcommittee meeting. Any other comments on this subject from PR, or any comments for Commissioner Alvarez on his subcommittee? Hearing none, I'd like to go on to Education Subcommittee, which is item number 9. Commissioner Diener, do you have any report?
Yes. As some of you know, Commissioner Carpel was there, and Candy Schneider, who couldn't make it today, was there in attendance to the mural dedication at Valley High School, Valhalla, and that was very successful. The mural looks beautiful. You'll see some images in a little while. I believe we have them loaded in. And so to wrap it up, we had the dedication. The process was terrific. The artist was wonderful, who spoke at length about how much he loved working with the kids and what that mural did for that school. And it was obvious what it's done for the school. So if any of you get a chance and would like to see it, it's at Valley High School. I'll give you the contact name of the art education teacher. You'd have to probably get permission to go in and see it, because it's not in the exterior, it's kind of in the interior of the school. But we feel it was a very successful project, and we feel that the students got a lot from it. So that's my report.
Let me find my little button to push. Thank you, Commissioner Diener. Moving on to the next item, we're very fortunate to have artist Mary Lucking today regarding public art. I think the idea of this presentation, at least from my perspective, is that she challenges or gives us some excitement about what the city might be able to do in the future, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Mary Lucking. The purpose of this agenda item is to just inform you a little bit about the public art, its best practices, but it's also about public art process, a little bit about other types of projects, and you'll see more about that when we do the year in review shortly. Just to introduce Mary, she creates artworks that help people explore and understand the environments and communities where they live. Her work ranges from large-scale permanent artworks to temporary interactive installations. Her projects include art incorporated into urban and rural walking and biking trails, public transit stations, college campuses, and neighborhood parks. Her commissions include pieces for cities of Phoenix, Scottsdale, St. Louis, Nashville, Tucson, El Paso, and Houston, and she has shown work at the Chicago Museum of Contemporary Art, MoCA Tucson, Sony Berlin, Cheekwood Museum, Boston Cyber Arts Festival, the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, University of Michigan, Arizona State, CUNY Graduate School, and Vanderbilt. 3 of her projects have earned Americans for the Arts Public Art Year in Review Awards. She holds a bachelor's degree in architecture from Wellesley College and a Master of Fine Arts in Art and Technology from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. And she currently lives and works out of Phoenix, Arizona. She is going to also host a 2-hour workshop, which is free to the public. That will be held from 10 to noon, as Chair Grogan mentioned, here in City Hall on first floor. There is no charge for artists, so we're looking forward to that. That will be part 2 of Working in the Public Sphere, and it will take off where the last one left off. So with that, I'd like to introduce Mary.
Thank you, Diane, and thank you so much for having me. I've been working in the public art sphere for 20 years, and the reason I've been doing it is because I have a deep and passionate love for this field. I assume all of you do because you're on this board. I really believe that, especially in cities like Las Vegas and Phoenix that are so new and have been bringing so many people from elsewhere, that building a city that has places that people can actually enjoy to be, that feel comfortable and beautiful and inspiring, make for a place that people want to call home, that people want to stay in, which is kind of one of the challenges of our big cities. So what I'm going to be doing today is showing you a little bit about the process of public art, how to get from the, hey, we should be putting a sculpture in this park here, to the part where we get the ribbon cut. That there's a lot of mysterious stuff that happens between A and Z, and a lot of that's maybe not evident if you haven't seen the process. As an artist, I do things that are creative. Painters and photographers and sculptors all learn how to work in an abstract world of color and form and shape, but there are a lot of things that you don't learn in art school that are particularly useful in public art. So I'm going to start out by showing a couple of my projects as illustrations of the type of problems and type of interactions that are unique to public art. And then I'll walk you through one project and show you kind of all the different steps and all the different interactions that happen. So as Diane mentioned, I went to school in architecture to begin with my career. And there are a lot of specific skills that I learned in architecture that you don't necessarily learn in an MFA program. Problem solving, figuring out on the fly what to do when X happens, when you think Y is going to happen. Site integration, how to work in a particular situation you're given, whether that's the site of a baseball field or a park or a neighborhood that has particular community issues that you have to work through. Teamwork, working with a large group of people. You know, if you're a painter, you can hole up in your studio and get everything very precise and exactly how you want it for just you, and then present it to the world. In public art, you have to work with project managers, with engineers, architects, and I'm going to be going through all sorts of people you have to do. And then building things, how you get things to actually stand up and survive for 20 or 50 years in a public landscape. I'm going to run through a couple of projects that I worked on that kind of illustrate these things. This was a park and ride in Phoenix. And when I came into the project, the designer of the park and ride had kind of put a couple of benches on a bare strip of concrete next to the road where the buses come, and it was really unpleasant. So I was able to collaborate with the landscape architect to create a much nicer situation. So you see on the top of the thing here is a sculptural screen that I developed, And on the bottom of the screen, you see a bird's eye view that showed how we not only created a sculpture that would provide seating and shade, but would also provide a nice green space. And being able to work with teams helped that out. So here you see the designs that the landscape architect put into the plans that show how we completely modified the space. That public art, if you bring it in early enough, can completely modify what a space can be. And here's the final product. There are sculptural forms that provide shade and provide seating, as well as kind of decorative forms of cars driving out into the desert. And that worked out so well that they actually brought me back to do 2 more. So this was another park and ride with other designs based on that same screen form that showed that were referencing this particular place. So in this case, Japanese farmers from the 1930s who grew flowers in the area. And this is just another example of working with engineers and architects to problem solve. This is the drawings for fabrication of a bridge that I worked on in Tempe, Arizona. We started out with a simple trellis bridge and turned it into a sculptural piece by adding these kind of fan forms. And the trick here was to figure out how to work with a particular existing type of bridge and stretch a very small budget to create a very large work of art. So here you see the final thing. And this involved working with engineers to make sure that all of the regulations for bike and all sorts of traffic going across this bridge would be filmed. So it wasn't just a kind of a sculptural exercise, but it was a how do you build something in a larger public space. There were 2 more bridges as the project. And then, as Diane mentioned, my other degree is in art and technology, which involved creating things that had both engagement and interaction, which are also skills that are particularly useful when talking about public art. You're not just making something that fulfills your own needs and wishes and loves and desires. It's figuring out what will be meaningful and fun and communicative to all the people who are going to be living with it. And that can mean a couple different things. This is a piece for the Arizona Science Center. It was an interactive piece where kids look into the telescope at the base, and there's a little tiny video camera that takes live feed of their eyeball and shoots it up to the giant 20-foot-long telescope in the sky. And the place is usually filled with groups of kids like that. So this is an example of a particularly engaging piece, understanding that the audience here is kids coming to the Science Center, so we want to make something playful. Another project that is a different kind of engagement. This is for a light rail station in Phoenix that is located at Indian School and Central Avenues. And a lot of people who live in Phoenix they know that there's a road called Indian School, but they don't know why. And the reason why is that for 100 years there was an Indian boarding school run by the U.S. government at this site. It's gone now. It's just a big empty lot. And so for people visiting this light rail station, what they may see is a really anonymous kind of nothing landscape. And my role as the artist was to help bring a little bit of cultural meaning to this site. So I did that by spending a lot of time gathering stories and interviewing people who lived at the site, either went to the school as students or teachers, or who didn't live at the school but who lived in the surrounding area of Phoenix. And those turned into 15 stories that were related on the station. So you see the little things in orange frames at the side. Each one of those is a personal memory of their experience at the site, with historical photographs and drawings and texts that I worked on with the people. So I'd like to run through stages of a public art project. And what I'm going to cover works if you're dealing with a $15,000 bus shelter, which would be a cheap bus shelter, say a small mural project, or a $2 million blowout. This is the center of what we're going to be spending money on in an art city, and everything in between. So all of these pieces that I'm going to be talking about relate to every single kind of public art project you can imagine. So the first stage is research. And so when I'm brought onto a project as a public art artist, I have to figure out kind of where I'm at. And the public art manager is usually very key in that, in trying to orient me. So if I'm working on a piece that involves a design team where I'm working with engineers and architects to integrate art into something that's being built, such as a greenway or a police station, that kind of thing, I have to orient myself in terms of where the building is in terms of design. And that's in talking to the architects and the engineers. It also means talking to the community, and that often involves a public meeting where people in the neighborhood will have a chance to let me know who they are and what's important to them. And then there's me going off on my own and kind of collecting information, trying to figure out what's unique about this site, what I can add as an artist. So the project I'm going to be showing you is a modern streetcar station in Tucson that was opened a couple of years ago. So when I was brought onto this project, the architects for the stations had designed this kind of a station. And as you see, it's pretty modern. It has these big chairs. They're supposed to provide shade in the summer. And it's kind of very, very dense. There's not a lot of room for art. And this is the location. And this is on 4th Avenue in Tucson, and I don't know if any of you have been to Tucson, but 4th Avenue is kind of a combination between the college drag, where everybody hangs out, and kind of all civic fun life. It's filled with thrift shops and cafes and bars and little restaurants and candy stores. There are lots of old buildings kind of painted like this, so it's very bright and lively and fun. And twice a year, it looks like this. This is a view from above during one of their 2 big arts festivals where artists put up tents, fill up the entire street, and tens of thousands of people come out for the day. So given those particular things, I went back to my studio and thought, well, what can I add to this space? What should the art be? In this place that's already very lively, that doesn't really need anything physical, that has all this stuff going on, what do I do? So my thought was, well, I'll work with the ground plane. There's already so much stuff on the station that I'll work where it won't be taking up any more square footage, so they won't have to remove any of the artisan tents that are there. And in terms of style, I just looked around for inspiration on 4th Avenue, and it's a lot of wackiness on the screen right now, but you'll see 50s or 60s and 70s prints, psychedelia, a lot of tattoo shops on the street, and also Mexican oilcloth designs, kind of all mashed together. And so the theme we came up with was psychedelic cactus. And then for materials, I had gone to a concrete guy, and he told me about this material called lithocrete, which is where crushed glass is inserted in concrete, and it's a way of creating very, very bright color that lasts in a sunny environment. I thought that would be a really nice material to work with. So I came up with a design like this. And what you're seeing here is looking down on the station, a design that would cover the entire length of the station in these bright blues and green cactus forms. And so then we took it back to the neighborhood. I met with the Merchants Association. I'd actually lived very, very near 4th Avenue for years, so I had a very good sense of what the space was. But talking to the people who were actually on the street, who own this and work in the spaces right there, is really important to understand that these people are going to be living with whatever you put right there. And got the thumbs up, everybody liked it. And then we went into design refinement, which is where you take your initial idea and figure out what won't work and how you're going to fix it. So in this case, I went to the concrete guy and got a bid, and it was about twice as much money as we had to spend. But fortunately, when you work with fabricators who know what they're doing and like the process of problem solving, they'll often come up with a solution for you. So he suggested a different process called lithomosaic, where tiles were pushed directly down into concrete in a way that it stays there. And it's a way of creating bold design colors like I wanted to, but on a much cheaper budget because you didn't have to cover every single inch. So I redrew it, and this is the design that eventually got built. So the gray you're seeing here is bare concrete, and the colored areas are tile. So if you can look at it as percentage-wise, only about 30% is actually covered with tile compared to the 100%. So we've condensed the budget, but still created very, very big, vibrant gold color, which is what was appropriate for this street. Then it was making sure that everything fell in line, made sense, so we got a sample made. And the sample was given to my project manager, who made sure that it passed all the slip requirements. You want to make sure that if you're putting something on the ground plane in areas that are going to get wet, nobody will get hurt. That we took it to the Merchants Association, who's going to be responsible for cleaning it to make sure that they could power wash any graffiti or gum that came over it. Everything you can do to make sure that this thing is going to have a long, long lifetime and will be safe to be around and also will survive. And then it's final design. And final design is where whatever the artist designs meshes with whatever happens in the bigger project. So that involves working very closely with the architects to make sure that where my project ends, their project starts, and there's no slippage. And so that involves a lot of very, very niggly, detail-y things where I worked very closely with both the architects and the concrete contractors to make sure that we knew exactly who was doing what, when, in what order, so that when we went in with the concrete, everything would be ready for us. So here you see a map of the station with all sorts of notes, making sure that everything was communicated from one team to the other. And this is what I presented to my fabricator, which showed the way I was going to break down the tiles into different sections so they could lay it out. And then fabrication. This can work a couple different ways. Often I'm more of a designer and I work with fabricators, but in this case I actually fabricated the piece, which involved a gajillion little tiny glass tiles. So I and an assistant used water-based glue to glue all these tiles onto a mesh. And you'll see a section here. This is about 8 feet wide by 8 feet. And then installation, which is when you find out whether all of your preparation has led you to the right spot or not. In this case, all those piles you just saw were taken down to the site after the regular building crew had set up forms for us. All the little orange things you see are little triangles down in the far part of the photograph are diamond dowels, and that's the way our concrete was hooking into the stuff that the regular station was working with. So just details like that, so we make sure that the concrete doesn't pop up. So they're laying down the tiles, and the way this works, it's pretty clever. The tiles get mushed down, the mesh is on top, and as it gets mushed down, the glue or the water in the concrete releases the glue, and they can pull back the mesh, and the tiles are permanently embedded into concrete. Yeah, it's really cool. And so this is the final product. So what looks here like a pretty straightforward small project, just some tiles in the concrete, actually took more than 2 years and involved the artist, the project manager, my concrete guy, all the concrete guys, the station architect, station engineer, all the station guys who built the thing, coordination with people on the street, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some people. So even small things get very, very complicated when you start putting them in the public realm. And so this slide is basically the theme for the thing I'm going to be talking about on Saturday, which is the theme for every public art project. The most important skill you can have, the most important skill, because you want to have a really good creative vision as an artist. But beyond that is problem solving. Every single public art project I have ever worked on, and I'm sure everyone that has ever existed, will throw you loops that you have no idea are coming up. And so to be able to think on the fly, figure out what's the core of what you're doing and how to get that to happen while negotiating all the things that are coming in to trip that up is kind of the core of being able to pull off a really good public art project. And I'm just going to be showing a few questions, or a few of the collaborators that I work with. As I mentioned, working with architects, figuring out what is the context, how I can fit what I'm doing into a building that somebody else has another vision for, and also a neighborhood, a city, a street. This is an example of a drawing where after I had designed 100% of a design for traffic shelter, the architects decided or realized that they had made a mistake in the way that part of their building was put together, and I had to come in and redo things in a way that didn't kind of unravel the sweater. So figuring out on the fly how you can keep what's important without it looking like it was fixed. Working with engineers. Again, this is a drawing from the bridges that I showed you earlier, and in the lower right corner, for instance, it's figuring out how the arch of my bridge works in with the railing that's coming in from the side in a way that is ADA compliant, that will last over time and will be safe. Working with community, who will live with the art. And again, I've mentioned this before, I make these things to fit into the spaces. So the most important thing for me is to figure out who's going to be using this thing and how we can make their lives better through the incorporation of art. How can we make the place more beautiful, more meaningful, and I like to say more humane. How do you make these places lovable in a way that people want to return again and again? And working in the environment, how will something look in 20 years? Some of these things are more obvious than others. As I mentioned, the tiles that we looked at, using glass as a way to keep color in a place like Las Vegas or Phoenix where color fades very, very quickly if it's paint. With the bridges, it's working with rusted finish so that there isn't the need to paint the project over and over and over. And then things like in the lower left, figuring out that what's important for a site, that shade is an important thing, and to figure out how to do that in a way that provides a comfortable place for people to sit without burning themselves on the seats. And then fitting our work into a larger project, and this is where communication and forward thinking is really important. This is a transit shelter that is being built right at the moment, and part of my job was designing a really pretty sunburst sort of thing to go around the corners. And then the other part of my job was figuring out how to communicate that to the people who were going to be building it. And so in that case, it meant coming up with this very complicated kit of parts that fit into each other one after the other, so that as the building was built and changes were made, we could kind of change it on the fly without me having to completely redraw everything. And then working with fabricators. Working with good fabricators can let me do things that I could never do on my own. For instance, building a 20-foot telescope that had to be installed with a very carefully choreographed 4 people on a scissor lifts. And I wanted to end with 2 thoughts. I'm not sure if this first thought is phrased well, but the idea that public art is a very particular job with very particular skills, a lot of problem solving, a lot of thinking on the fly. I have a lot of wonderful artist friends who I admire very much that love working in a very controlled environment where they can make exactly the thing that they have in their brain. And with public art, the skill is to have an idea and then figure out how you can communicate that to a finished project while absorbing all the information that's coming at you. And then the flip side of that is that public art is for everybody. It's the idea that I make my living as a public artist, and I'm really grateful for that. But in the end, public art is for making a city a better place. It's for creating better parks, better swimming pools, better streets. And the more public art that we can do for all the citizens of a city, the better for everybody. So thank you so much. Again, Diane said we're having the meeting at 10 a.m. at City Hall, where I'm going to be going over a whole lot more problem-solving stuff. And I'm not sure where we are at the time, but I'd love to answer any questions you have.
Does any commissioner have any questions?
Commissioner Abelman, some of your drawings are really technical. Do you have to work with an architect? It seems like, since you had a background, that must help. Is that?
I don't have a license, so everything that I get built that stands up has to be stamped by an engineer or architect, and that gets folded into the plans. It kind of depends. If I'm doing very small things, I don't necessarily need to. Having the ability to draw things that architects can understand and fold in is extremely helpful. Basically, any particular skill, whether it's fabricating or drawing in CAD, isn't particularly necessary. What's really necessary is being able to communicate well to the other people in the team, the other people you're working with, and being able to kind of learn and absorb. So I think one really interesting thing about public art is that I don't know two public artists that came to this profession in the same way. I came to it with a couple of other degrees, and often people come to it from a gallery situation. But everybody I know that's successful is really good at problem solving and figuring things out, and open to the idea that ideas and changes are going to come from everywhere. So I think public arts, you know, maybe I'm 10% engineer, 10% architect, 50% artist, kind of just ready to learn and figure out what's necessary for any particular project.
Commissioner Abelman, so then is this your main livelihood then, as a public artist?
Yes, I've been supporting myself for at least 10 years doing solely public art. Before that, I was kind of cobbling together, you know, teaching and designing and that kind of thing. I feel extremely lucky to be able to do that. Yeah.
Any other input?
Thank you, Chair Grogan. Commissioner Alvarez, thank you very much, Mary, for your presentation. It was excellent.
Thank you.
And I love your work.
Thank you.
Definitely. As a professional public artist, what kind of advice can you give an artist who, let's say, is a great muralist, or is a great sculptor, or a ceramicist that wants to get into the public art realm? Would you advise, well, one, what advice would you give them? And two, what advice would you give us to help artists who work with those mediums that want to get into public art?
I think, actually, the first talk that I gave a few months ago covered a little bit of that. And I have a couple of things that I recommend when people ask me that. One is to start small. Temporary projects are an extremely good way of doing that. If you don't have to have something that lasts for 20 years, it's a lot easier to experiment. And public art, temporary projects are often situations where you can submit ideas rather than finished work, so it's often a lot easier to get in. And for instance, City of Scottsdale right now has a call out for a spring celebration they have every year called Canal Convergence, and they're asking for proposals for temporary projects. So that's one very, very nice way of doing it. Another way that I've seen work quite well is projects that are specifically set up for new artists in ways that kind of help the new artists work well. So, for instance, City of Phoenix set up a situation where there were some terrazzos that were going into fire stations, I think. And there was a very good terrazzo company in town, and they kind of teamed up artists with the terrazzo companies so that the artist, they looked for artists that were extremely skilled in kind of color and form and really beautiful, but had never worked on that scale or on that permanent. But by teaming them up with an experienced fabricator, they were able to kind of start on their things. So I think start small and figuring out ways of helping people learn the skills that are required in public art. Thanks.
Any other comments? Anybody else have any other comments from the commissioners? Thank you very much, Mary.
Thank you.
Again, I would suggest to the commissioners on your social media sites, if you could address the fact of the meeting on Saturday. I think it's very important if we're trying to encourage our local artists to participate and or to find projects around the country to make them public artists. This would be a good seminar to attend. Moving on to the next agenda item. We have a report from our visual arts specialist. I never knew that was your great title. That's a good title.
Thank you, Chairman Groban. I just want to say thank you to Mary for her presentation. I think it was a really good lead-in to the next segment, the next agenda item, which is one of our annual traditions at our June planning meeting, and that is year in review, which are the best projects selected nationally. I just want to say there are a lot of parallels. Mary works primarily in desert climates. There are a lot of challenges associated with working in a desert climate. Certain paint colors like red do not hold up very well. Certain materials like fiberglass, you have to make sure that there are ultraviolet ray inhibitors. So those are some of the parallels I see between some of the projects that she presented and how workable they would be for the Las Vegas area where we're constantly being under scrutiny with the sun. So what I'd like to do is just present 12 projects out of 37 that were selected. So each year, a group of people get together. For this year in review, 2014, which was basically unveiled a year ago, 2015 was just unveiled last week, so I don't have the most recent ones, and I can show them to you when we get a copy of it. So there were probably 200 submittals of different projects nationally and also Canada. And from that, the team of Kath Bruner, who runs the regional art program for Portland area, Ralph Helmick and Janet Zweig, who are both award-winning artists, they selected 37 projects. And I picked 12 of them. And the ones that I picked were primarily low budget, and most of the low budget projects are temporary projects. And then I threw in a few that I thought would be really applicable to our climate and to our, for instance, there's one of a viaduct that has a lighting component, which would be really appropriate to a viaduct in Las Vegas. So let me move forward. Okay. The first group are projects budgeted from $0 to $50,000. So this first one is a temporary project. It was commissioned by the City of Seattle. The information you can see is on the left of every slide. And this was a project for a park, a Westlake Park, which is downtown. It's a very heavily used urban park. This was only $10,000 because the artists put together materials that were fairly low budget. Corrugated plastic, colored adhesive vinyl placed over a wooden frame. And because it's only going to be up for 3 months, that means that you can use those type of materials which would not be appropriate for permanent artwork. So the idea was to take this arch that dated back to the 1980s and liven it up. And this was used as a backdrop for all summer months about 2 years ago and was very, very popular, and then it came down. So public art doesn't have to be something that is high budget, put on a permanent basis. And a lot of times, one of the benefits is you're going to have a community love it or they're not going to love it, but it is going to be temporary. And then, fortunately, you know, maybe a year or two later, something else can go up in that same area. So we have a couple of different views of it. Okay, let's go back. Okay, there's another perspective. So it gives you an idea of how large a space this occupies. He called it Cave Crystals. Okay, the second one is a mural project, but it's not just the visual image, it's also a text-based mural project, which enlisted all the artists that you see listed there, and this was commissioned by Sacramento. So here you have a lot of different visuals. And it was a wonderful project because it paired graphic artists with poets, called Words on Walls, local businesses. So it's basically funded by the city, but it was also done on private land with permission from different store owners. Okay, this one, Funnel Tunnel, is another very, very colorful but temporary project with a low budget. Steel, reclaimed wood, acrylic paint. And you see it occupies the median space because this is an area where there's a lot of vehicular traffic. 180-foot sculpture, looks like a tornado winding through the trees. Most of the wood came from a turn-of-the-century cotton gin that had been dismantled, which was offered to the artist after he posted a request for architectural refuse on Facebook. The community helped paint the strips of wood using paint donated by Valspar during a party that was hosted by this Houston Arts League. Okay, Art on Fond du Lac, which is in Milwaukee. This was a 20-block temporary public art project along Fond du Lac Avenue. $40,000 project, used all types of materials from aluminum cans to concrete block, flagging tape, mirrors, and so forth. So there were a team of artists creating several different site-specific artworks. Fostering site-sensitive temporary public art since 2006, Insight was invited to install art at 17th and Fond du Lac Avenue. This exploded into Insight's biggest and most cohesive installation along 20 blocks. They had opening events that made this prominent artery more attractive, acted as a catalyst for neighborhood development, increased transportation safety, and created cooperation between community partners. 9 artists were involved. 3 had roots in this particular neighborhood. For 3 others, it was their first time going into public art. So as Mary mentioned, temporary projects are a really great way for artists to get their feet wet in the public art realm. Okay, fire hydrant drinking fountain. Okay, this was a very unusual project, and it was done in, as you can see, in Calgary. Okay, there's a stranger's fountain, and then there was a family fountain, and there was a group fountain. So one of the things that they tried to do was look at the connectivity of people and groupings, exploration of the role of public fountains as social spaces, creating 3 different forms of gathering. With their workings visible, these unique fountains make the direct connection to the city's hidden infrastructure understandable, intriguing, and inviting us to celebrate something we take for granted, such as drinking water. So as you can see, it was very popular for people and for dogs, and it was truly a community project. Okay, now in the higher budget range, this one is Filament Mind, which is actually in Jackson, Wyoming at Teton County Library. $67,000 project, and this is a permanent project. They use fiber optic cable, LED illumination, powder-coated steel, and aluminum. It's a human information-driven installation designed to visualize the collective curiosities and questions of Teton County Library visitors through a dynamic and interactive spatial sculpture. Whenever any public library visitor anywhere in the state performs a search of the library catalog from a computer, Filament Mind illuminates that search in a flash of color and light through glowing bundles of fiber optic cables. Each of the 1,000 fiber optic cables hanging above, totaling over 5 miles of cable, corresponds to a call number in the Dewey Decimal System, which organizes the library's collection into approximately 1,000 categories of knowledge. These category titles are displayed in text on the lobby's south and north walls at the termination points of the fiber optic cables. Okay, for sheer fun, this is Seattle Office of Arts and Culture, Percent for Art Program's Fire Station Number 9. This is powder-coated aluminum, blown glass. It's a permanent project, $90,000. Fire Station Number 9 is a newly built fire station in the Fremont neighborhood, which is known for a unique character and quirky personality. Created by artist Peter Requiem, 9 Lives is inspired by the ever-ready cat icon, which is Fire Station 9's distinctive identifying symbol from the previous fire station. The colossal cat perches on the roof's edge as if he's about to leap to the ground to join his crew on their next life-saving mission. The monumental scale of the black cat sculpture also serves to identify this facility as a civic building. The artwork's sense of whimsy is a great match for the station, which is a family-centric neighborhood, in a family-centric neighborhood is well suited to Fremont's personality. 9 Lives has become a destination on the Seattle art tours of the Fremont neighborhood, and it's a landmark for the community. Okay, next project is Breaker. This is in Aberdeen, Washington, at Weatherwax Park. It's made of salvaged building stone, earth berm, and plantings. It's comprised of 309 salvaged sandstone blocks. It's a new landmark for this coastal city of Aberdeen, sited along its busiest thoroughfare. The blocks were originally part of their historic high school. When the school burned down, they wisely saved the stones. Now, an earthwork site-specific sculpture and illuminated nighttime icon, Breaker reimagines the salvaged stones into a cresting ocean wave that speaks to Aberdeen's coastal geography and rugged, enduring character. Over 4 million motorists pass through Aberdeen annually, largely en route to the coast. The City and Grace Harbor Community Foundation that funded the project wanted travelers to experience the community's rich history, can-do spirit, optimism for the future, and also to honor the Weatherax family. Despite tough economic times, they invested in the artist's work that celebrates the town's past, revitalizes a major arterial route, and provides a cornerstone for future urban renewal. This one I just threw in because it's a performance arts piece, and it uses Limoges porcelain plates, full-color printed table runners, tables, chairs, tablecloths, napkins, and enough food for 904 people, including 150 volunteers. It was installed in the city of Philadelphia. It was put together by their mural program, and it's a performance piece that on the surface seems like a community gathering, but it is also centers around the horrifying loss of biodiversity and the rapidly disappearing food heritage in the U.S. So they brought together 900 people around a communal table to sample heirloom produce and to debate the politics of food production and the role that these foods play in healthy ecologies. Okay, this project I think is very appropriate for Las Vegas because there's been discussion about trying to make viaducts and underpasses more lively communal spaces. So this was done by Public Arts San Antonio. It transforms an outdoor underpass into a community shadow theater. A series of 6 brilliantly lit, color-changing chandeliers hang from the underpass and each cast bright shapes and colored shadows. The chandeliers are made from recycled bicycle parts and other metals with LED lights used to allow for creative expression with minimal maintenance. Okay, they go on to mention how this is used by students going to and from school, and it's made it a more pedestrian-friendly place. Okay, this is by Miami-Dade. They debuted 2 new public art installations at Port Miami, Coral Reef City, and Ballard Project, transforming the campus of Port Miami into an outdoor public sculpture. These works of art enrich one of America's busiest ports, welcomes more than 4 million cruise vacationers every year, and spans the entire landscape of Port Miami. So what you see here first are colorful bollards. The artist is Jim Drain. He uses bright, expressive color combinations to transform the utilitarian function over 1,000 bollards into a signature work of art for Port Miami. They're artist-designed bollards. They're thoughtfully arranged in color sequences and rigorous geometries that reference maritime flag signage. Also, you have toll collection booths, which reference their entryway into a tropical area featuring 18 unique compositions. The artist collaborated with Coral Morphologic, which is a Miami-based scientific art endeavor led by marine biologists. They selected and enlarged macro photographs of corals that inhabit the water. It's another City of Philadelphia project. Permanent cost was $228,000. This pays homage to Philadelphia's long and important history as a center of both furniture making and shipbuilding. The site reminded him of Navy's razzle-dazzle camouflage designed to disguise the orientation, speed, and direction of travel of large ships at sea. He layered camouflage onto the surface of the forms designed to recall a large docked ship. The resulting effect is a graphic dazzle of black and mirrored shapes that chop the viewer's reflection while reflecting rippling, watery shapes of light and casting deep, amorphous shadows on the ground. Okay, we have two other projects, and these are higher budget, but they're colorful. This is a streetcar stop the artist Jorge Pardo created for the city of Portland. It's both a shelter and lighting component. The eccentric, multifaceted structure includes over 300 individual panels in shades of gray and brown on the exterior with warm hues of orange and yellow on the interior, sheltering streetcar passengers in a highly visible and fantastically colorful way. He wanted to create an effect of being rainy on the outside and sunny on the inside for the streetcar riders. And lastly, for $4 million, you too can have a Jamais Plensa. If you've been to Chicago, you've probably seen the Crown Fountain. So this particular project is of a young girl who lives in the artist's native Barcelona. Depicting only her head, the portrait represents humanity as well as our human potential created and fostered by our dreams. The transparent mesh creates a visual bridge as he strives to link together art, architecture, and society. People are encouraged to enter the sculpture through openings on either side of the head, an invitation for visitors to physically experience Plensa's metaphor of the mind being sanctuary for the dreams. And that's the end of the show. Any questions?
Any questions of commissioners?
Diane, I'd like to ask you about the Plensa piece, and you just got back from Chicago, where the Public Art Network Review had their conference.
Yes.
Was this a highlight? Was there a lot of buzz about it?
There was quite a bit. I mean, there were numerous tours that went to Millennium Park to see both the Anish Kapoor Cloud Gate, which is affectionately called the Bean. There are a number of tours to see that, and which is very, very close in the same park to the Plensa Crown Fountain. And when the weather is warm, the fountain is running, and there are people of all ages going through it. You don't really enter it over, you don't jump up to it, you don't jump down. It is strictly on ground level plane with water, and it's wonderful to watch how the faces of the Chicagoans change on the fountain. So it's very, very popular.
Thank you.
Commissioner Abelman, so who commissioned that piece for $4 million?
That is,
I'm sorry.
I believe it was a private company. Let's see. And Canna Corporation Private Development Funds. So this may very well have been an art and private development project. There are certain cities that have ordinances that require corporations to create site-specific artwork for the site of their business whenever they put up a new building or do extensive remodeling. So it could have been part of that.
Any further questions from any commissioners? That.
Thank you.
Did you also have a good tour when you were up in Chicago? Did you learn a lot?
They had a wonderful tour of the south side of Chicago of the murals. The city is just filled with murals. I mean, it's a wonderful place for art. There's quite a bit of public art there. So, and they had a number of sessions about cultural diversity, public art, and it's an annual conference that is specifically a pre-conference geared toward public artists and public art administrators.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, moving on to agenda items. We have agenda items 13, 14, and 15, and I would like to kind of put them all into the same bailiwick as we discuss our public art annual budget for the fiscal year. On item number 13 for discussion is something I raised as an interest that I felt like that one of the subcommittees we should perhaps consider.
Chair Grogan,
Yes.
I believe you missed item number 12.
Oh, did I? Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize we had Diane again. Diane, please, sorry.
I appreciated the break. Thank you very much.
So anyway, when we get to 13, 14, 15, I want them kind of collectively discussed as they refer to both 12 and the other item of number 15. So.
This is very brief. We also do, at our annual meeting, basically a history of projects that have been accomplished, programs that have been completed, and projects that are coming up or in various stages. So this is going to be very brief, but okay. Many of you attended the dedication last fall of the First Street Art Trail. On the left, you have bike racks by local artist Mary Hill, And also, there's an art cache, which is very popular. We get lots of emails from people who find these caches, which is very similar to geocaching. And so that's been completed as well. And of course, the Lovable Cat Snowball in Vegas. This is by Jesse Smigel, and it's one of probably several sculptures that'll be part of the First Street Art Trail. Architectural photography project, which was budgeted at $50,000. That's in the final stages of completion. The artist created a portfolio of 25 images of historic buildings. This is one of them. So they're being printed right now. Then they're going to be framed. And then we're also going to have an exhibition in September in one of the City Hall galleries. So we'll get to see all 25 of them. Once the exhibition is complete, then they will be broken up, but they will be continued to be displayed in public places. So in lobbies or city art centers. So this is a collection. It's going to be on archive paper, archive ink, so that they can last for, we specified at least 100 years to the photographers. In art education, there was a lot accomplished. We created with Mark Brandvik and Stephanie Bray of Valley High School a curriculum for all Valley High art students. So there were 400 students who were involved in this all together. There was one assemblage in an auditorium. Gina Van Glass from engineering gave a talk a little bit about engineering as part of public art. And then we talked a lot about our public art program, and it really gave these students a new appreciation for the art that they see around them. Mark Brandvik was the artist. He led them on a mural project which was dedicated, as you know, on May 29th, and we received funding from the Commission and from the Nevada Arts Council. Here you get a view of the site before, and you have students working on it. And here you have a view of the two murals after. And the one on the right is a woman Viking warrior in an anime style. Okay, you're all aware of the Charleston Heights project, which is in fabrication at this point, will be completed in late fall. And two of the 5 different bench designs, which will be, 2 of them will be installed, 2 designs rather will be installed at the end of the summer. These are the gates designed by Zach Ostrowski with a view, an old view of historic West Side School. And they will be, depending on the project timeline, they will be installed as soon as the rest of the project is completed. And here are a few of our collaborations with Public Works: Main Street sculpture benches, Carson Ave redesign, First Street Art Trail, which will now go into Phase 2, Downtown Alley Activation Project, and Las Vegas Boulevard Improvement Project. Part of your budget goes to different types of awards. Celebrating Life, which was held recently, $4,000 goes to award-winning artist, and then the Mayor's Urban Design Awards. PR and marketing, 2 brochures were completed this year. The redesign of the lvartscommission.com website. The communications office has been working very hard on a media plan, press releases for any type of event or call to artists, the City Scene segment with Zach and Chair Grogan, and social media coverage. The art map you're also aware of. Here's a view of the redesign. And here's a view of the Public Artists Workshop. This one was taken in January for the first workshop, and the second one will be held on Saturday. Okay, we had 2 fairly well-attended public art lectures, Dan Corson on the left and Nori Sato on the right. Both of them geared their talks specifically to artists and public art and their projects, how they got into public art, the challenges that they face, as well as some of the rewards of being in the field. Collection and maintenance, we're always working on that. The Markers project at Centennial Hills was completely refurbished. The 2 pieces that were broken are now, were fixed and are now reinstalled. The Southern Nevada Law Enforcement Memorial and the Martini tables in Circle Park have been fixed. The commission contributed $10,000 to the NEA grant, to the monies funded by NEA, to create a Maryland Parkway Public Art Urban Design Plan. This is going to create a cohesive urban design plan uniting UNLV, downtown Las Vegas, Clark County, and the airport. You can see who the participants are, who are the partners. There was a proposal that was accepted by Bunnyfish, the local architectural firm. And then in fall 2016, they will complete their plan and submit it to all the stakeholders. There will be numerous public meetings involved with this, and you'll receive information about that.
Diane, can I just pipe up and just say this is an Our Town grant?
Thank you. Okay, and here's some of our annual fees for storage and working on condition reports for the various artworks, and that's the end.
Any commissioner have any comments on the overview?
Commissioner Alvarez, thank you. Chair Grogan. Diane, thank you for your report. Quick question. Is Snowball a permanent or a temporary work?
It's a permanent piece.
Okay, it's made out of fiberglass, and you had mentioned earlier that, fiberglass is not something that...
It's not fiberglass. It's a core of a foam, but the entire core is covered with truck bed liner material. So it shouldn't degrade in the sun. It'll probably have to be repainted at some point, but it's fairly durable. You could take a baseball bat and hit it.
Right. Is it made of the same material as the gnomes?
No, I don't believe it is.
It's made out of a harder material?
It's a harder material. We specified that it be a more durable material.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then my second question is regarding the photography. And I had brought this up a couple of years ago when this project was announced. Will the photographers be relinquishing their the digital files or the film itself, and will that be part of the city's permanent art collection?
Absolutely, yeah. Part of the agreement or contract with the artist was that the city has the rights to use these images in any way we choose, and that we own these images.
And that's the 25 or all of the outtakes also?
Not the outtakes, no. Just the images that we purchase.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Commissioner Abelman, do you know more about the alley project, the downtown alley project? Because I was really curious about that, and so I was wondering if you had any details to share.
Sure. Public Works is working on kind of a standard booklet, and booklet is going to make, in general, suggestions about landscaping, pedestrian-friendly paving, how to incorporate public art as part of the project, both as a functional public art, such as seatings, planters. So they're just basically coming up with a booklet at this point. I know they're looking at an alley in downtown, but I don't have the exact address of that.
Yeah, I reached out to them about, they were looking at a few alleys, and I was really curious if you knew which alley. I think one of the alleys that was the strongest was behind Beauty Bar, and I was just curious if they've moved forward with that as a pilot, because I thought it was a really great idea, so.
They're still putting the booklet together.
Okay.
Any other input or questions from commissioners? I'd like to do kind of an overview statement. First of all, I think any commissioner should be proud in looking at what we have done for the past year and what we can point to, that if anybody comes up and says, well, what does the Art Commission do? You have more than just one or two things to do, but you have an entire scope of work that the Art Commission has been very active in, and your participation has caused that to happen. Primarily, there are things that the public doesn't see, which is very morally imperative for an art commission or public art. For instance, the art in education is a good example of something sometimes you might not see visibly, but it has a long-term impact of teaching a younger generation to participate and appreciate public art. I also would like to make this statement and want to, on behalf of the commission, thank Diane for all her work for the past year, because it has really, I think, shown and given us an activation of the commission, being supportive both to the commissioners and to myself for keeping us informed and keeping us active. So again, Diane, I want to thank you on behalf
Thank
of
you.
the commission. So, okay, anybody else have any input on this subject? Okay, let us move kind of into looking at the budgetary items going forward in the fiscal year. And we have, again, as I was trying to say before, but we have kind of issues 13, 14, and 15. And 13 is something, again, as I said, I wanted to, it was an idea that I had, that it was, as we look towards projects for the next year, in my tenure and in the years past, sometimes we are receptive of projects that are brought to us, and we become reactive to those projects. But in this instance, with the economy improving and our budgets maybe getting larger and more participation from outside influences like Public Works, I think there is a good determination that we perhaps need a subcommittee that helps us as the full commission in vetting projects, that as people suggest projects and or city agencies come up, that we have the ability to look through them and have a subcommittee help us with information gathering, and also putting projects that just come out of the woodwork after today we may have approved some projects. Along comes another project that we like. We need to figure out how that project might fit into both our budget and or the ability to go out and look for monies as we've decided to try and do. So as chairman, I wanted to suggest the formation of a project development subcommittee, and I will spell it out a little bit more, but again, it's going to be kind of a vetting or gathering of information that then comes to the commission as a whole and is able to bring up the information so that the full commission can make a very intelligent, fact-based decision. What I'd like to do is, if that's acceptable, I would like to have a motion to create, so after any further discussion, create such a subcommittee, and then please email me your desire to serve on such a subcommittee. It's not limited in who serves on it, and we'll figure out times as we warrant the need to look at projects as they come along. And then we'll move forward. And hopefully this would be an active subcommittee, and it would be a beneficial to the full commission. So if anybody has any discussion, I would be welcome to hear it.
I have a question, Chair Grogan. Are you asking for a motion to form this committee and then discussion?
Yes, to have the discussion, we should have a motion and put that on the floor.
I so move.
Okay, there's been moved. We don't require a second. Is there any discussion from any of the commissioners?
Thank you, Chair Grogan, Commissioner Alvarez. You know, I like the formation of this committee because we as commissioners, according to our charter, suggest ideas for public art. You know, I feel that, we're always approving projects that, are being brought to us from the Office of Cultural Affairs, but we never seem to be giving out ideas. And I've given out a few ideas, and I would hope that other commissioners would too. I mean, so we can represent our constituency and our wards. So I think the formation of this is going to be good, but at the same time, I hope that it will be an active committee and that we come up with some ideas to activate art in our community. I've already come up with some ideas that I would like to see come into fruition in my ward, and I would encourage other commissioners to do so also. I think it's important that we try to be as active as possible as commissioners to help push art and to continue to support the arts in our community. Thank you.
Any other conversations for other commissioners?
Commissioner Abelman, will this subcommittee be limited to just this commission, or can we have artists beyond this? I'm curious because some of the thoughts that I've had as we're going through our presentations today have been the need for perhaps other perspectives, and so I'm just really curious if this committee will be just limited to us.
I was looking just for commissioners to kind of keep it focused on the art that's brought to us. I don't think that precludes the fact that any artist who wants to show up and be part of the discussion that we've had in the past for subcommittees, it's an open meeting and people could come in and discuss that, or have their input in it. So I don't need to think they need to be voting, because I think that sort of vote still is a reference of the subcommittee being a part of the commission itself, and not necessarily, we can't have a public member of a subcommittee, if I remember some of our legal status on that sort of thing. But having said it, we're open to input. I think, as Commissioner Alvarez has mentioned, and I think the idea is we don't want to preclude that we set something in cement now and then a few months later something comes up. I think this subcommittee their goal would be actually very positive, and it would be positive on figuring out how we do something when something is suggested to us, and that we don't start out with a negative, but we start out with, okay, what are the assets we have, and what can we actually do to make this work? And that becomes the realistic idea, if we can move forward as a commission and support whatever project somebody brings to us. We have a motion on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. Again, anybody interested in the subcommittee as a commissioner, feel free to email me. We'll try and put something together. We'll also probably try and have a subcommittee meeting set up as we're allowed to under all the agenda items that we have to do, but we'll try and make it active and keep it going. So thank you very much. All right, now moving on to item number 14. One of the things that this leads to is having a subcommittee is that 14 and 15 are kind of similarly attached in that the way we do our budgeting and our public arts budget, the question would be arising, is there any chance or ability within that budget to come up with specific grants? And my understanding, again, in the discussion of this, is that we would still have to go through the process of contracts and budgeting, but that doesn't mean that in our discussions today we could have some unencumbered funds set out for grants that come along that encourages artists in our community to create something. They would just have to go through a miniature bidding and vetting process as we do with all contracts. But anyway, this item's on the agenda. Any discussion from any of the commissioners? Commissioner Alvarez.
Thank you, Chair Grogan. I was doing some research as far as other cultural arts organizations similar to ours in other cities such as Los Angeles, Salt Lake, Reno, and they all have a granting program for artists, and we don't seem to have that. And that was the reason why I brought it up, as to why we don't have it and why can't we take a look at that and potentially start a program like that for artists and their projects.
I think that's something we can look into. However, the granting, right now, just my personal opinion of this, and we brought this up in several of the Main Street subcommittee meetings, there are sites and locations for art that could be placed along Main Street, and in my mind, that's where something like that, where we can ask artists to put something there, and it can fall under a grant sort of aspect, but it might be a definition, that the definition might be the grant is also something that comes through the project. So not trying to split words here, but something like that is we achieve the granting process, but they're basically miniature contracts, and they still are grants, but they're not unencumbered, or we don't write checks and give it to an artist and say, show up and show us your artwork. I don't know if we can do that, as I have read the state law.
Chair Grogan, if I can just address the whole granting program.
Please. You might want to identify yourself to the clerk.
Assistant City Attorney Terry Ponicello. You could have a grant program, a grant process, but I think you identified it, that you must have an objective for your grant program. So just to give out contracts and say it's a grant to an artist to do whatever, without any objective out there that serves a public purpose and is in the public interest, because these are taxpayer dollars. So if you want to establish a grant program, it has to be vetted out and flushed out with parameters as to exactly what it is. Many of our recommending boards that we do have here at the city process grants for a particular purpose. So just remember that if you want to create a grant process, that it has to be vetted out, flushed out, what is the objective of the grant, and then who's it going to serve, and that's the objective that you need to accomplish in order to there be the public purpose doctrine of the grant funds being served and the public interest being served.
Thank you. And as well, one of our goals, if you remember that we did all this year, was to get the ability to have monies from sources given to the city that would help us in our projects, and those indirectly might be contributions that in turn become grants, even though they might have to go through the process. That might be what we're trying to achieve also.
Yeah, I just want to mention to that, if you did receive certain type of donations, grants from an outside source, they may have conditions attached to them, so you must comply with those conditions. I am not aware of your budgetary process, and maybe Nancy can answer a bit more to that. Like
Yeah,
the NEA grants, I know probably have some conditions.
We do have grants. We do have a grant account set up that takes grant money in, but as Terry pointed out, it's conditioned grant money. You write the grant for something, so we're the recipients of the grant money. And if we write the grant for our centers or whatever, it has to be spent on that specific thing. But we do have the ability to take grant money in and take donations in. So if there was a funder out there that was giving money annually to the Arts Commission as a donation to be given back out to the artists in that fashion, and that was the criteria, it could be used for that. And I think I'd also like to address Commissioner Alvarez, and you had brought up the city of Reno and Los Angeles and everything. And a lot of those cities, in fact, all of them, get TOT tax, which is transient occupancy tax, or room tax, or whatever tax. And that's given for cultural programs to grant out. We aren't set up that way. We don't get that money for that. The LVCVA, as you probably are well aware how they fund things, does give a grant to the city each year, and it's given for parks and recreation. Out of that grant this year, we are getting some allocation for some cultural projects, but they're cultural projects that have already been predetermined as to what it's allocated for. And it's allocated basically at the city manager's, mayor, and elected officials level. So, I mean, it's like Terry was saying, if we take our money in this Arts Commission's budget to grant out, you have the general fund money, which is, I think, $49,000 and change. We probably could look at that and do it, but we would have to be specific as to what we were going to do it for. We might say, we want to do sculptures wherever, ABC, and we're going to use this money, and we're going to grant it out. But basically, it's kind of the same process we're doing now when we put out RFPs and RFQs. The artists come forward. The only difference is, like Terry also said, the artists can't come forward. You wouldn't give them money, and they would come forward and say, well, we'll let you know how we spend it. Right. It just doesn't work that way, for us now, anyway.
I understand that. My thought possibly maybe focus on some smaller projects where we can do some micro grants for artists to complete murals or small sculptures and things like that, very targeted, where we don't have to use huge amounts of our budget for that, but at least, make a big impact with smaller projects.
You wouldn't even have to call it a grant program. You could just call it a mural program, and we would just fund
I
it.
think you could create something like that and just have it as a small project. That could work, and you don't have to use the word grant or anything. It's just small project allocation, and that would accomplish your goals, I presume.
Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Abelman?
Yes.
So is this something that you would like to flesh in your agenda item, the project development subcommittee? Because I think some of these ideas are really good, whether it's a mural program or grants or whatever it is. These are really great things to flesh out for the future. Is that kind of what you're leaning towards, if I maybe get some clarification?
Yes, I think that's some of the idea. I think we're going to have, I think what I see is that both from the commissioners and from the community, we have a great outpouring of people with creative ideas and projects in mind. I think when we get into our next item and look how much money we have to spend, I think we're going to find ourselves wanting to be able to spend some money further down the road or prioritize monies right now. But I don't want to preclude anybody coming to this commission with a no. I want to be able to say we will take a look at it and see what we can do under the restraint of budgets we have and/or find money elsewise. And a mural project, if we could figure out how to do it, would be fine. All of you might have an idea on something else. I want to try and accomplish more than we have done the last 2 years. And if you look at it, we've accomplished a lot. We need to continue that and expand. So to your point, yes, I would like to see that as kind of a condensing item, but it doesn't preclude the entire commission from looking at what we come up with. It's more or less kind of the fact-finding subcommittee that makes these projects reality and saves us probably a lot of time from somebody just coming in and started hitting us up with a lot of generalities.
Commissioner Grogan.
Yes.
Commissioner Weinstein here. I'm curious if this is a good time to bring back up our idea previously about a wish list, a grant wish list, and when we were talking about the Bloomberg grant and things that come across every year, and I wonder if that would be something appropriate for that subcommittee to be in charge of.
I don't see any problem with that. I think what we should, no, I don't see any problem with that. I think what we need to do is have kind of a reality check and do number 15 on the agenda and just kind of see what our monetary sources are and what we have at the end, and see what any commissioners might have as projects that might use some of those budgetary monies. So yes, and I think the subcommittee is flexible in what comes before it, and we as a commission can give it direction down the road as we look at different things.
As far as wish list goes, I meant more along the lines of grants that were available, not so much things that we want to do as far as projects go, but when the Bloomberg grant came around and we only had a short amount of time to get involved with it, creating a calendar/wish list of potential opportunities where we could actually take in more money, not that I'm not looking to spend more money.
No, I think that's a good idea. In fact, I think that's some direction the commission probably can give to our staff to keep us apprised of grants that are floating out there that we may, as a city, be able to apply for. I think that's a great idea.
I think it would be good to do it in a formal way.
That would be fine. Have no problems.
Can I just mention the Bloomberg grant? I know that people are still thinking about it. That was a letter written to our mayor from the previous mayor of New York and asking her if she wanted to participate, and she did. And there was a quick turnaround. I would hope that in the future she'll get another letter like that.
It's
and
a grant that
hopefully we'll have
happens
time.
regularly, though, no?
No, this was the first time it's ever happened. It's never had a Bloomberg grant before. For temporary art, this is the first time.
Well, I know that it had come in, it was like on the front page of the New York Times, something
big
like
deal.
that. So I know that it came in quicker than we were able to process it, and at that time we did discuss this, and we discussed that it would be a good idea to, there's got to be some kind of lead time, that some place to look, and perhaps that committee can be in charge of researching things like that.
I think your idea of the committee having ideas lined up is great, because if that happens and there isn't time for the commission to get involved, the mayor says, I want to write a grant, I want you to write a grant, she directs staff to do it, and we do it. And so if we had like a list of projects, we could say, Mayor, how about this? Now, she's the ultimate decider. She can say yes or no to this grant. And so that would be great, and that's a great idea. Thanks, Polly.
Okay, if there's no further discussion on this, I would like to move into agenda item number 15. I will read it since it is important. Discussion for possible action regarding the public art annual budget for fiscal year 2016, which is the Municipal Arts Grant General Fund of $49,141, and the Percent for Art Fund, which is $302,000, $320. This affects all wards in the city. Diane, do you have the opening discussion on this?
Very briefly, Chairman Grogan. As you can see, the general fund is absolutely the same as it was last year, which is $49,141. And just a brief description, general fund money is can be used from during only that fiscal year. So it can only be used from July 1st of this year to June 30th of next year. and then it basically it goes into a larger fund. So those are funds that we try and use over the course of the year. It probably wouldn't be good for a project that would involve a couple of years, because the money wouldn't be there. We don't know exactly what will be there from year to year. And then the percent for our fund, this is the total amount. You might remember last year we broke that out into another column, which was maintenance. We had $130,000 last year budgeted for maintenance. So that we took away, and on the bottom, on the very left column, you have a maintenance of $12,000 for paintbrushes, which is the annual cost. And then art maintenance, we are requesting $60,000 be held from that $302,000, so that we never know what vandals are going to do. We don't know an artwork that's basically going to deride in the climate, and so we'd like to have a certain amount of that just held back for maintenance. So on the left column, general fund, there's a request for $10,000 to do another education project. Further down, Celebrating Life, Design Awards, those are the same as last year. Celebrating Life, those are cash awards that go to the winners of the competition. The Design Awards is the Mayor's Urban Design Awards, which cost $3,000 to manufacture. Those are glass awards. We're requesting lecture series again of $5,500, and artist workshop, again, $5,000. Staff operation, which is described on the right, for $1,000. Plaques for identifying artwork, $2,000, $1,000 for any other publications that may be coming up. We don't have any lined up right now, but we'd like to have money there. And then we have an art storage fee, which is an annual fee of $22.82. So adding up all of the left-hand column, you've got $33,782, which is a remainder of $15,359 for the general fund. And then you'll notice the percent for, well, then there's Public Works, and those are projects that we're working, and that's their budget. And then on the right, we've got $302,320. That's the complete amount of money in the percent for our fund, and those funds do roll over to the next year. So whatever isn't spent this year can be spent in succeeding years. So if you want to do a larger project and you want to hold off spending funds until hopefully there'll be more money, we never know from year to year what is going to be put in there because it's based on capital improvement budget, then you have the ability to do that. So you notice I don't have anything down there except for maintenance, because we've received a lot of really great ideas from all of you. I think 4 or 5 commissioners have sent us some really great ideas that can be vetted by the new subcommittee.
Before we go into what commissioners might want to bring up, I had 2 questions. One, and I'm thinking of this in terms of a motion, and that is on the left under the general fund, everything that is in red parentheses. I would like to maybe seek a motion, and we can have a discussion on it after the motion if I can get a motion, is that we accept the art office's acceptance of those expenditures of being set, that we agree to setting those, that we all agree that those are what we want to do. So that gets locked in, so we don't start fudging from those dollars, because the dollars that are set out here are ones we do indeed want to spend. Does anybody want to have discussion now, or would you like to have a motion and then have discussion? Okay, then I would like a motion that we set the amount that are in the red ink as the budgetary amounts to be spent for the fiscal year out of the general fund amounts. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
Also move. Nancy so moves.
Okay, it's been moved. We don't require a second. Basically, what I'd like to do is just lock that in, and therefore we would be discussing on spending $15,000 of that amount of money. Also, probably the $12,000 and the $60,000. Those are general items. We don't know how much those will cost, but we have to accept that that's what might be what we spend monies on. And then if there's anything left over, that would go back into the arts project for going to other projects. Any discussion from any commissioner?
Yes. Commissioner Abelman, can you give me some detail on the education, the 10,000 that goes into that? Is that kind of like Mary here, those kind of discussions, or what's the education projects?
You know, and I'll ask Diane to help here because, but like the bulk of it this year was spent on the Valley High project with the artists and the mural and the paint and everything. But Diane, can you break it down?
You'd like me to discuss what the education funds were spent on this past year?
No, I wanted to, so it was an art project, it just was art related to education?
For, not sure I understand your question. What was done by?
Yeah, what was the 10,000 used for?
Last year, approximately 6,000 was used on the Valley High project. That included the artist in residence fee and all the materials. And then there was some left over from the 10,000. And when we had an artwork that was vandalized, knowing that we still had money left from that, we decided to use the bulk of that to repair the Martini table rather than take the money out of the public art fund.
Gotcha. The other question I had was about the art storage fee. What are we storing?
We're storing files, we're storing maquettes of artworks that artists have submitted, just a number of different types of equipment, things that we don't really have room for on the fourth floor.
Thanks.
Any further discussion on the motion?
Thank you, Chair Grogan. Commissioner Alvarez. Diane, regarding the 12,000 for the paintbrushes, and I know that's an ongoing expense, and Young Electric Sign Company is taking care of that.
Exactly, yeah.
I think it would be a really good idea, and maybe you and I and maybe someone else from the commission can get together, and I'd like to point out that the paintbrushes are not working properly. You know, this has been an ongoing problem for a really long time. There's parts of the brushes themselves on the very top that do not, the LED doesn't go all the way to the top like they used to, and also the sequencing isn't working properly on the brushes, and it's almost as if the LEDs have been replaced, and when the sequencing happens, it doesn't work in sync with the rest of the brush itself, and it's happening on both brushes. And I see this all the time because I live in the area and I'm always, you know, in that general vicinity. So if I'd like to show that to you, but I think YESCO may not understand the original sequencing of the paintbrushes and, you know, the kind of the spark that they used to have when they were first installed. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's a good idea. Thank you, Commissioner Alvarez. There's a motion on the floor. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Now what I'd like to do is that we have some dollars available, and there has been some commissioners who had some ideas or projects in mind. This would probably be the time to mention them, and then, as I said, we have a new subcommittee. You know, I don't think we'd vote on those today, but we would move them to the subcommittee to take under consideration and gain the facts of the commissioner's request. So if any commissioner has any thoughts or ideas they would like to suggest.
Chairman Grogan, I'm sorry, really quickly. Did that motion include the 60,000 for maintenance and the 12,000?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Member Abelman, I have some ideas or thoughts. One of them had to do with the activation of Boulder Plaza, and I know that you mentioned that the LVCVA has some money for Parks and Recreation. Is that covered under Parks and Recreation?
The allocation from LVCVA for Parks and Recreation has been allocated. It's already allocated out for this coming fiscal year, but for the following fiscal year, I'm not sure. And I don't know, Boulder Plaza is a SNPLMA-funded project. I'm not sure. I don't know what the parameters of that funding is, but there's a year to find out.
Okay, that's just one thought. The other thought is that is one of our only really parks downtown, and I think it'd be really great to put some money to it and activate it. I really feel like downtown, the more that we focus on the art, the more we create a quality of life downtown. It's something that we need as a community, and we've done a great job. I agree with you, Chair Grogan, but I really think we do need to do more. So that would be one thought from me. Also, I know that we have something on here already, and I kind of wanted to touch base on that, and that's the activation, really, of the First Street Art Trail. And I'd really like to know what we have planned, because I think that it's really a great venue for us that leads from the 18B to the City Hall, and really could really lead all the way down to Fremont Street. So I think that that's another place to look at utilizing money.
Thank you, Commissioner. Another commissioner for discussion?
I'd like to make a comment. Nancy, can you clarify, does the city Parks and Rec get extra funds from the room tax? Because my understanding, it's, from my time when I was at LVCVA, it was a breakdown. LVCVA gets a third of the room tax. A third of it goes to Clark County School District. A third goes to Parks and Infrastructure. Does the city get a special allotment for Parks and Rec in regards to that?
It's called Parks and Rec, but it doesn't go to the Parks and Rec department per se. It's used to build parks and anything that it's kind of a broad term. And they get a certain allocation, and it's in the millions, and I couldn't tell you what that figure is. And I don't know how it breaks down for the LVCVA. The county's art committee is funded by that. So instead of choosing to fund their arts commission through percent ordinance money, they chose to go after that pot. So I think it's different in different cities. All cities get a share, but I think it's different in how different cities set it up. But that's, I mean, I can find out more information, but that's all I really know.
I think any other commissioner at this time? Yes, Commissioner.
Yes, this is Commissioner Shefsik. I also like to second the ideas about revitalizing Boulder Plaza, to develop some ideas or some projects to put on there, or invite artists to participate in it, because it's a space that's not being used, and it really should be. Also, the art trail, we have one piece of sculpture there, the cat snowball, and to continue to develop this as an art trail, to develop a project where there may be another sculpture or two that we could place elsewhere on the trail, just to make it visible, to make it a trail, and I mean, to add to it. And then another idea, well, it's not an idea, but to follow up with another mural with another high school, because I think the Valley High School project was a huge success, and to identify another high school, perhaps Western, like was originally mentioned, or another high school in the city, and approach them with the idea of a mural and show them what happened at Valley High, and continue with that. I think that would have a great impact with the school, with the students there, and visibility for the Arts Commission here. So those were the three thoughts that I had about what could be done, and probably not a lot of money. So anyway, thank you.
Any other commissioner?
I just wanted to also second the Boulder Plaza project. You know, the Boulder Plaza has just been, it's kind of this great space that no one uses except maybe on First Friday and a few other times. My understanding is there's a movement to actually have the fences removed to make it a little bit more inviting over there. Can someone correct me if I'm wrong on that?
Commissioner Alvarez, Jorge Cervantes from Public Works and I made a presentation to the 18B board meeting probably over a year ago, Mark, and it was regarding taking the fence down from Boulder Plaza. That never happened, and a lot of that is being driven by business owners, people who've moved there and don't want the fence there. But personally, I, as the Director of Cultural Affairs and somebody who was involved when that plaza first got built for the Agam sculpture, I've always kind of felt like the fence needs some mitigation. Either it needs to go away or it needs to change somehow. To me, it's too much like a jail fence. I feel like the space is in jail. That's what it looks like to me. However, First Friday uses it. They do teen dances there, and they're able to ticket, and they use that fence, although we've gone to them and they said they can put in their own fence if that fence comes down. How it's been left is that we're going to regroup. Jorge and I are going to talk. Maybe we should include some of the commissioners to see, and if the business owners still want the fence down or up, that has a role as to whether or not it becomes a revolving gallery. You can't put sculptures in there or revolving art pieces without the fence there. So do you leave the fence up or don't you leave the fence up? And when Jorge and I made our presentation at 18B, everybody in 18B seemed really happy with the idea of the fence coming down. So I think, and I know that Jorge and I have discussed, that it needs to be responsive to the community. That's all the city wants to do, is respond to the community with that plaza. And I agree, it's a wonderful space. There's not many spaces, and greening it somehow, i.e. through some kind of green foliage or something, would be a wonderful idea too. So I think it's going to be a hot topic for discussion, and I think everything's on the table.
Thank you, Commissioner Diener. Also, one thing about the fence, you know, and this is kind of strange, but the fence is actually in violation of the Centennial Plan, because it's not a fence that is part of the plan's fencing. You know how the Centennial Plan requires a certain amount of fencing around parking and projects like that, and all that fencing is very consistent throughout the downtown area. That fence doesn't work, and I was pretty surprised by that. And also to say that if it's going to work, that if we put sculpture in there, we have to have that fence. I mean, that's not the case in other communities. And I think if we have sculpture that can withstand the test of time, so to speak, you know, I think anything in that space will work pretty well.
Whoops, the history there was that the public art, I think it was called the Public Art Committee, that was spearheaded by some people in that district who wanted to fundraise for AGAM. The funding never materialized, but they felt strongly, and they went to the city and lobbied the city that the AGAM sculpture needed to be secured by a fence, and that's how that fence wound up there, and it was funded through SNPLMA funds. And so I agree with you. I think that the fence is kind of overkill in a way, but I think that if you're going to put a permanent piece of sculpture, yeah, you don't need the fence. But if you're going to do a changing sculpture, if you put pieces in vitrines, or it just depends on, that's what I mean. I think it's a hot area that is really ripe for something, but it needs consensus, and there needs to be some discussion. And I'm excited that all the players that are interested down there want to have that discussion. And I know Jorge is too, so.
Commissioner Abelman, what influence does the business owners have over that park or that fence?
Well, I don't know that they have any particular influence. It's not as if it's a condominium association and they're paying for it. But when the city's receptive to not just the artists, but to the businesses, and some of the businesses have gone to the city and said, we don't like looking at that fence. It's not anything we want to stare out at from our property, and that's what I've been told.
Okay. And Commissioner Abelman, that's why I do think it's a really big conversation for the community as a whole, because it's really a place that does need to be activated, so I appreciate that perspective. Thanks.
Any other commissioners want to talk on any other items? I'd like to just bring up the overall philosophy is we've been brought to show what is available during the course of the year. We don't have to have a Christmas shopping list from ourselves. At this point, we have the ability now to know that we have funding out there. I would suggest that 3 great items have been brought up: the murals, the art trail, and the Boulder Plaza. I think those need to be firmed up by people who would like to more define what they are, and then brought to the subcommittee or brought back so a value or a costing can be put on them, see how they fit into the budget. From my own perspective, one of the things the last couple of meetings that I have mentioned was the fact that we have all these pads that will be made available along the Main Street project, and I would like to, and I say just to keep this thing moving, is identify 1 or 2 that we can suddenly create a project, a grant project, or pick 2 things that we can start saying how much would it cost for doing another one that isn't the signature piece, but gives us some definition along that street. Another thing, one was asked that we would come up with our shopping lists, that I know of one project that's in Councilwoman Tarkanian's district that would require maybe $7,500, which would be part of a matching fund in her district, and I would present that to the commission at a later date when more specific items come out, and that would be art, design, as well as seeking an artist. So I would bring that back to the subcommittee, but I don't see it as major. Again, about $7,500 for a specific council person's district for art. Again, if there's no discussion on the budget per se, what we would seek is a motion to pass it as it has been presented to us, which basically is the monies we have available. And again, the point is, as you run across projects or projects are brought to you, you now have the realistic look at what our limitations are, so you're able to turn around to somebody from the community and say, we have these abilities, I can present your artwork, or let's go out and find some additional supporting money, but we now see the realism of what the city has to work with in the next fiscal year. So I would be seeking a motion to, I think the political thing would be to pass the motion, or pass the budget as submitted.
Commissioner Abelman, so moved.
It has been moved and made a motion that the commission supports the public arts budget worksheet, which is the fiscal year 2016 budget. Any discussion on that at this time from any commissioner?
Commissioner Diener again. I just want to say really quickly that both Commissioner Shefzik and Awam brought up the art trail, and that's really good discussion to have. And we don't need to take the time today, but maybe at the next commission meeting, Diane will make a report on the art trail and the aerial banners and the public art that's going on there. So, because we've talked about it before, but we haven't visited it in a while, so it would be good to revisit it and then take a look at whether or not you want to allocate more money or any money. Thank you.
Chair Grogan, I mean, Nancy brought up banners, and, you know, I think I presented 2 projects that I'd like to see along Maryland Parkway, which I will bring up at the subcommittee meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. It's very positive. Okay, moving on to, I'll make sure we're doing this right. Moving on to item number 16. Okay, item number 16 is discussion for possible action regarding the Arts Commission meetings in July and August. Technically, or in the past, we have basically been on vacation in July and August. I only bring this up because I would not like to see us postpone 2 months of time if we have something coming up. And I'm not asking commissioners to ask for a formal meeting per se. Don't know how the policy would work, but I'm asking that if any of the subcommittees see some activities such as the Main Street signature piece, if we can get a quorum and do the announcement for the quorum, and it speeds up the process, then I want to keep it flexible. Again, I'm not taking anybody away from vacation plans, and I'm not asking for a specific meeting. I'm just saying if there is a need for a specific meeting that helps us with our timing, I'd like to be able to have that flexibility. Is there any discussion on that? Okay, this is just more of a general statement. I'm not seeking, I don't know if I need to have a formal motion on that basis from the city clerk's office. Would I have to just have?
Chair Grogan, Assistant City Attorney.
Yes, please.
I don't believe it, after you mention your discussion here, that you need any action. It sounds like what you're looking for later is to call a meeting in the future for either July or August, depending on what you need to get done. Are these regularly noticed meetings, regularly scheduled meetings?
It would have to be
City
a
clerk?
regular notice.
Yes,
yeah.
they are.
So, okay.
Okay.
So just notify the city clerk whether there's a need for a meeting.
Okay. All right, fine. Any further discussion on item number 16? Okay, moving on. Item number 17, is discussion regarding topics for future agenda items by the Art Commission. Comments made during this portion of the agenda by individual commissioners shall refer solely to proposals for future agenda items. I won't read the rest of that. Any commissioners have any future agenda items that you would like to discuss? Commissioner.
I just wanted to bring up one item for the September meeting, is a report by the curator of Life is Beautiful to give us an update on what they're doing with their mural project and their art motel project. And I think our meeting is 2 days before that event, so thank you.
Very good. I would also remind commissioners, if you have any cultural items like we've done in the past that you'd like to have people make introductions or give presentations on, please notify Diane, and we will make the accommodations to try and help that. I think it's been very positive, and it's shown from the commission's interest in the cultural side of people out in the community. So I'd like to continue that. So let us know down the road if you have anybody who would like to make a presentation. At this time, I would move on to item number 15, citizen participation, public comment. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to make a comment on our meeting of today or the budget or anything to that? I'm glad we drove them out. No, I'm
Just
glad.
Chair Grogan, it's item number 18.
Oh, I'm sorry. Item number 18, I'm sorry. Okay. See no one in the audience wishing to speak. I would hear a motion for adjournment.
Chair Grogan, I just want to make one quick announcement. I apologize.
No problem.
We have a position that's advertised, and I just want to make sure everybody is aware of that. They're working in the public art field, and it's posted now, and the closing time is July 25th. So if anybody that you know of is interested, they've got to get their application in before July 25th.
And what sort of person are you looking for?
It's a visual arts specialist, too. They'll be working with Diane in the public art arena.
Great.
Thank
We
you.
can always use more people to expand our horizons. There's a motion on the table for adjournment. All in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes carry. We are now adjourned.